Welcome, everybody, to this new episode of the Digital Nomad Mom Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Nicole Laino, and I am very excited to have her with me. We're doing a little bit of off-topic talk today again. Nicole is not the classical digital nomad mom as of the description or by definition, but we have been doing these types of shows and episodes on and off on the Digital Nomad Mom podcast, as you know, and I always like to bring in some opinions and some insights on the topics of how to create an online business, social media strategies, and also I think why I really like to bring on Nicole on this show is because she has a different take on combining work and the work-life balance, but I let Nicole explain this a little better. She's calling herself a hippie in a how do you say it, a hippie in a business code?
I always say I'm a type A hippie is what how I refer to myself.
And I like that, and it resonates. I mean, it does clearly resonate with most of the people listening, because everyone, I think, most people who aim to or are living the digital nomad lifestyle, we're all type A hippies of some sort. I clearly fall under this category as well. And Nicole and I, we met only recently on social media in a clubhouse room, and I think it was one of the Female Coaches Unite rooms that you joined. And so now we're taking this online connection to talk about a little bit about you, Nicole. Let us hear your story first, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Sure. I thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to just chat with you and to hopefully give everybody some value and have them get something out of our stories together. My story. What I like about, I guess I'll tell it in slightly a different way for this audience, because I think that your audience is a bunch of people who are, breaking the rules somewhat and not looking at life linearly, or they're thinking about not looking at it so linearly about like, this is what I do, and then I do this next, and then I move on to this, and then that's my life. And I love that. And it makes me free to share my story in maybe a little bit of a different way, because I have kind of this convoluted path. I right now I'm a business and visibility coach. I always say, because I focus very much on mindset and helping people show up and come out of their shell and do things that are out of the ordinary, do things that feel a little crazy to other people, or do things that feel crazy to ourselves, like showing up online, showing up authentically, sharing who you are, sharing your story, digging into what your story really is. All of that is what I do now. But my convoluted path, I didn't always own it myself, because I was saying, well, if I'm a coach, maybe I should have this background. That would be better if I sounded like I came from this world. And what I started out, I was an actor. I acted in New York City. That's where I grew up. I acted out there. And like a lot of actors, I ran out of money and I got a job. And the job I got was a corporate job. I got a job on Wall Street and kind of fell into that. However, I do think I kind of manifested that. I think I was looking for some structure. I think I was looking for what I learned there. But when I was there, I was like, don't tell anyone you were an actor, because everybody here went to an Ivy League school and everybody had this pedigree. And I was really running away from myself, and I was running away from my truth. And I do feel like every step I've taken has been a lesson in embracing the last step and embracing all the steps and loving them all for what they were, which is a necessary part of me being who I am right now. And so that my story is, I was the actor, then I moved on to Wall Street. I burned out on that career after like 6 years. Did really well there, but was like, this is not for me. And I made the crazy step to say, I don't want this anymore. And bless my husband, he was like, okay, you can leave that fancy job with the big paycheck and the big bonuses and all of that stuff. And let's take a chance on this idea of going back to acting. So we moved from New York to Los Angeles because my husband is location independent. While he works for a company, he works remotely. So we literally can work from anywhere and live anywhere. And so he said to me, he's like, we may not always have this opportunity. So yeah, let's go someplace else. I could get out of here. I don't know why we're here now. And we left, we moved to LA. We went there. We were there for 6 to 7 years, almost 7 years. And then now we live in Austin, Texas, and we're parked here for a while, but we do have kind of, I think that there's an itch for us to be scratched, which is, to at least spend a few months abroad or do something that feels different, because we can.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting to hear. And there's also a lot of parallels to my story. And I would like to ask you this question, if you can point the finger on that moment or maybe that experience, or do you know the reason why you suddenly decided to go 100%, this is my truth. I'm stepping up. I mean, you had always this nagging voice inside your head, but was it maybe seeing other people or interaction, or what helped you to actually step up and say, no, I'm not going to follow this other people's path, but choosing my bold way?
I got hit over the head a bit with reality. So when I made the big move out of corporate and into this and to go back to acting, to do the crazy thing, I remember the look on my boss's face when I told him I was going to leave. I was quitting my job, and I'm like, I'm going to go be an actor, and he was like, what? But I remember a moment where I was diagnosed clinically depressed, was what happened while I was working there. And those signs are really subtle. They're impactful. They're definitely powerful to the person experiencing them, but you can desensitize yourself because you can normalize it. You can normalize the fact that you just don't want to get out of bed, that you could just say, like, I'm so tired, I just don't feel like it. But the dread that I felt about going, I didn't know until I went to see somebody. And he was like, what you were describing is how we define clinical depression. You are depressed. One moment that I remember that I've talked about before, on my show and in lots of other places, but I remember it so well. I was standing in this very fancy building that I worked in on West Street in Manhattan, and I'm in front of a floor to ceiling window, and I'm leaning against it with like my forehead pressed against the glass, looking down from the 6th floor onto West Street. And I remember the thought I had was, look at all the free people down there.
Mm-hmm.
Here I had this fancy job. I had this big paycheck. I was in these fancy clothes. I had Louboutin shoes on, like what on paper, what everybody would think was pretty awesome. And I felt trapped in my life in that big glass box. And I was like, something's got to change.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And it's funny because the other day I listened to a podcast about happiness, and it was also, I mean, the people on the show were discussing the same topic, that wealth or financial independence doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy. I mean, you can look at many examples out there, the famous celebrities that have it all. Most of them come to or go through a crisis, personal crisis, or we've seen so many cases where it clearly shows money doesn't buy you happiness. And it's still like, when I think about and also when I go through my coachings with people, when they approach me and say they want this and that lifestyle, and that's why they want an online business, and then I always say, and what is it that you actually after? Because we're all after, I mean, essentially we all want to be happy, right? That's our number one goal. And when they say they want a location independent business, then that's the foundation to it, right? Because they think then once they have that all established, then they're going to be happy. And partially, obviously, it's true, because then you can travel, you can buy the things you want if it's going well. But still, you gotta focus on, on yourself, on what else is there, what else. It's not only this one thing, because once you reached your goals, what then? You got this online business, you got this location independent lifestyle, you got this acting career in your case, but then, or the corporate job in that case, you still, I think, what's really important in life in general, that you have this sense of mission and vision, more profound. And now I'm getting really philosophical here, but I think I can talk to you about this, because this is also what you do in your coachings with your clients, right? That you talk about the mindset and getting a little bit underneath the topics, and not only, superficially. So I don't know, do you want to add something to the happiness part?
Well, I was going to say that a lot of people, it's, and something that I kind of work through with my clients too, is recognizing that it's never the thing that's going to make you happy. It's, you have to know what you're looking for. You have to know, what is it about location independence that you want? Like, what is the want within the want within the want? And because when you get to that core, so it's like asking why you want to be location independent, why, and you want to make sure that when you get down a couple layers deeper than that, that you're at something real, and you're not looking to like band-aid something that it's like, oh, well, because you could also, sometimes you can get that same result multiple ways. And just opening yourself up to that. So it's, and I mean, location independence, it could be anything. It could be, some people might say, I want to have a podcast, and, it could be the exact, well, why? What do you want from that? And that's kind of how you get to anything, as far as what will make you happy. Nothing's going to fill you. You have to do that. And when you say like money doesn't buy happiness, money just amplifies whatever it is you've already got going on. So if you're a hot mess, it's probably going to make you a bit of more of a hot mess in some ways.
That's true. Very true. Nicole, you're also a mom, and tell us a little bit about this role and how it impacted your life, and how do you see yourself embracing the mother role, but at the same time trying to make it work, or you making it work as a mompreneur.
No, and it's, it is a juggling act. I will say this, like, and I used to hear people like, my child is the best thing that ever happened to me. And before I was a mom, and now I totally get the weight of what that really means. My son's 3. His name is Jake. He's adorable, and he's the sweetest little boy, but he's also a 3-year-old boy and needs a whole lot of attention. So working from home, with him home, not at school, and it's been a challenge for sure. How being a mom has changed me. It's changed me. It honestly helped me get more in touch with that authentic version of me, that authentic me, because, that capacity for love, the patience that it takes to be a good mom. I'm constantly reminding myself, all the mindset work that I do with my clients and I've been doing with myself, I get to see he's a reflection of me and my energy and what's going on with me. And I'm really determined. I did not have the most patient father. He was very impatient and a little absent. And so I'm very conscious about the mom I'm being and the parents we're being. I'm conscious of how much is absorbed just naturally. He won't remember any of it, but it'll be in him. So I'm really, really careful with how I parent. And it just makes me, it made my heart grow. My heart is bigger. My capacity for love is bigger because of him. And I'm more patient, more mindful, and that's just seeped out into everything that I do. It's made me a better coach. It's made me better at everything that I do. That's not to say that it is not a challenge to do the day-to-day stuff, for sure. We do have a nanny. I'm lucky I have help, but she's part-time. So there's a lot of like doing some work after he goes to bed and juggling it that way, and really trying to, the biggest thing for me was really realizing that I needed to stand up for myself and my business with my husband, and not from a perspective of him not allowing things or not being supportive. But my tendency is to think like, well, the mom should do all of these things. The mom should do this. Mom. And I had to say, no, we should have a schedule and be like, on these days, you take him when the nanny leaves and I take him these days, and setting that up and putting up those boundaries. And he said yes right away. Like, it wasn't a problem. It was more me asking for it, because I'll just do it and he'll just assume that I'm doing it. And then I'd be bitter and angry. So that was a big lesson.
That's a crucial point. I think most moms go through. At least I can definitely 100% relate to that. And it's not so much that the partner isn't ready for taking over. In fact, like in my case too, my partner, he's really supportive and he always does immediately the things like. But sometimes in the beginning, I noticed I was just clinging on that mother role, but at the same time stressing out so much because I couldn't get all my other things done. And then I realized it's not anyone else's fault but mine, and I have to just let go and let other people also get involved. Because in the beginning I thought, no, mom has to be there 100% all the time, but mom also needs a break and take care of herself. So with my second son, I'm a lot more mindful and a lot earlier. I was a lot earlier ready to actually give it to daddy and say, okay, I'm going to get a massage now. All these types of things I would have never said in my first with my first son. And but it's so important. I mean, we know, happy mom, happy family, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, and there are so many things that can be tied to that. I think it's just a good lesson for us to remind ourselves. I think women can take on a lot, and there's this dual thing happening where we're both upset that we're not getting supported, but we're also not asking for it. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So, and just taking responsibility for that, because it can be a way that we hold ourselves back. It can be, that can be a story that you have in your head. Oh, well, I don't have enough time to do anything because everybody needs me so much. And that leads to so many other things, so many other thoughts.
Exactly. But I find having a structure and a clear, like a calendar, that's also the tool that we use. So everyone knows exactly the week is laid out or the month is laid out, and everyone knows when, where, and how it's going to happen. And that's super helpful. Do you have any other mom hacks, so to speak? Like, if someone is only thinking about it, should I really get on this path of creating my own online business? Or maybe I have started and I haven't really sorted out or figured out how I should manage or can manage my day-to-day life, other than a calendar and an established routine. Would you say there's something else?
I mean, the routine is huge because it's for the whole family and you're coordinating a lot of people. But I'd say, I do a lot of mindset work. I would say that as far as the mindset, first of all, if you're going to go into having a business, certainly one where you're going to take the family on the road and make that level of commitment, that make sure that you are taking all excuses off the table and you're taking radical responsibility for everything that's happening. And because otherwise it can breed resentment. You can start to create excuses where you can't succeed because this person needs you, or this is happening in the house, and really just asking for help and making sure that when you look at something and you can't do something, asking yourself, rather than blaming something or someone, or because that I think is the dangerous thing, is that some women can end up blaming and resenting the family for her being held back. And if we take responsibility and we just say that I'm creating everything that's happening right now, how can I make this better? There's always an answer. There's always something that can be done. And just coming at it from that perspective with an open heart, not to beat yourself up, but to just say, how can I change this situation rather than shifting into blame, because the family is so important.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good approach and advice. And I think also sometimes maybe what has helped me definitely is setting realistic goals. Like when you're just starting out, especially. I mean, we all know that once we're on a mission, it can't get fast enough. But especially when you are a mom. You can't do the things as fast as other people who can sit behind their computers 24/7. So I love my work, and I tend to work a lot whenever I can. But this was one eye-opening moment when I sat there with my first son, and I was nursing him, and then it just dawned on me, okay, Julia, you gotta slow down. you
Yeah.
have this you have this little baby now, and this is priority, obviously, and things will take longer, or you have to tell people they have to wait because you have the best excuse. And yeah, I guess patience is a big word.
Patience is a big word, but it's also one of the things that's really interesting is if you stop pushing and you start to enjoy it more,
Yeah.
it will get easier and your results will be just as good, if not better. And because you're allowing, then you're shifting into allowing instead of forcing. But one other thing that I will say, just in the vein of what you were just talking about, is a lot of people, what they end up doing is they end up, when they kind of over engineer, or they can't tell the difference between a project and a task. They'll say something like, write social media posts, break it down into chunks, little bite-sized pieces, and then you can break that down into the smaller pieces of time that you have. So if you only have 20 minutes, you can write headlines, you can write the captions, you can choose the images, you can do one of those things for one post or two posts, but being really specific about what your task is, rather than looking at it as something bigger, and where your brain starts to shut down and starts to say, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for all of that. It takes me 3 hours to do that. No, it takes you 3 hours maybe to do the entire thing for all the posts. What if you wrote one right now, just the caption, and then after nap time, you find an image for it, or you take an image for it and you edit it, or you make a graphic. And breaking that into separate tasks can be helpful to wrap your mind around it.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to bite off. But it's also, it just makes it, you can be more productive in shorter pieces of time.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good tip. Cool. Maybe before we wrap up the show today, can you tell us a little bit about your current project and what you're working on right now, and how people, if they're interested, how they can find you and check out your program?
Oh, I would love that. Thank you. Sure. I'm kind of always working on the same thing for the most part. I do different kinds of workshops all the time, but my program is called the Limitless Entrepreneur. It is a group coaching program. It's a year-long program where people can work with me on building their business and mindset. So we're always talking about how to, I'm also a rapid relief method practitioner, which helps people clear limiting beliefs. So I do all of this stuff. I teach business building, mindset, and clearing the limiting beliefs. I teach all of that inside my Facebook group. I do weekly trainings in there. I actually do show up twice a week in there. The group is called Unlock Your Inner CEO. You can actually go to innerceogroup.com and that'll take you right there. And then I'm Nicole Laino Official on Instagram. So you can keep in touch with me there and see what's going on.
Perfect. Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah, I watched partially of the masterclass that you just run this week, and I must say it's really valuable. So people should check it out. I didn't get to watch the second part of it just because I told you I was just the past 2 days full-time mom, but I will do that over the weekend. And yeah, amazing. Thanks so much, Nicole. Clearly a lot of value here, and so interesting to hearing your story. Thanks for coming on the show. And if you want to say one last thing to say people goodbye.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm just so grateful to have been here. I hope that everybody got value out of listening to this episode, and hearing some of my story maybe helped you feel your way into an authentic part of yours. But thank you so much for having me. This was really exciting. I'm so grateful to be here.
Thank you for taking the time out, and thanks for listening, everyone. And yeah, this was it. See you next week with another episode of the Digital Nomad Mom Podcast.